Enjoy your vacation, Logan. It'll cost you everything. That's what I whispered to my screen after he fired me. He thought he won. I'm Aiden, 43, an IT systems administrator who kept the company's tech running smoothly. Logan's betrayal cut deeper than a knife. Years of loyalty, gone in a Zoom call. I used to think hard work was enough. Now I know. Silence breeds weakness, but control brings justice. I sat at my kitchen table, the laptop's glow harsh against the dim room. My coffee was cold, untouched, the mug's handle worn from years of late-night shifts. The Zoom call started like any other. Logan's face filling the screen, tanned and relaxed. A tropical shirt screaming vacation. He was somewhere warm, waves crashing faintly in the background. I'd been up since 4 a.m., fixing a server crash he'd never even know about. My eyes stung, but I straightened up, ready to report. Aiden, we're restructuring, he said, his voice flat, like he was ordering lunch. Your role's redundant. Effective immediately. My breath caught, a sharp hitch in my chest. Redundant? After 10 years of keeping his systems online, of saving his ass when clients screamed about downtime, my fingers tightened on the mug, the ceramic biting into my palm. He kept talking, something about severance, transition plans, but it was just noise. His eyes never met mine, darting to his drink instead, ice clinking in the glass. I wanted to yell, to demand why. My throat burned with it, but my jaw locked tight. Years of swallowing my pride, of nodding through his stolen credit for my work, had trained me to stay silent. Any questions? He asked, already half checked out, his hand reaching for the end call button. I managed to choke. No, the screen went black. My reflection stared back, pale, hollow, a man who'd just been erased. I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping loud against the floor. My hands trembled as I stood, pacing the kitchen, my boots heavy on the linoleum. 10 years. 10 years of 2 a.m. server reboots, of skipping my daughter's recitals to fix Logan's screw-ups. I'd built the IT backbone he bragged about in board meetings, the one he called his vision. My stomach churned, acid rising, as I thought of his smirk. He'd fired me from a beach, not even bothering to look me in the eye. I sank into the chair again, my pulse hammering in my ears. The house was quiet, too quiet, my wife and kids asleep upstairs. I stared at the laptop, its blank screen mocking me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to do something, anything. Then it hit me. Logan's voice, casual and careless, saying, HR will handle the access revoked tomorrow. Tomorrow. My breath steadied, a cold clarity cutting through the fog. I still had admin access. Every server, every database, every client record, it was all still mine. My heart thudded, not with fear now, but something sharper. I leaned forward, the chair creaking under me, and logged back into the system. The dashboard loaded, a familiar grid of power I'd built from scratch. Logan thought he'd cut me loose, left me powerless. But he'd forgotten one thing. I wasn't just an employee. I was the one who kept his world running. And I could make it stop. What do you do when the man who betrayed you leaves the keys to his kingdom in your hands? I was about to find out. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight, its sound sharp in the silence of the house. I sat there, still in my work boots, the laptop closed, but its heat lingering on the table. My hands were steady now, but my chest felt tight, like a fist was squeezing my ribs. Logan's voice from the Zoom call echoed in my head, cold and final. Redundant. The word burned. 10 years of my life, reduced to that. I'd started the company when my daughter, Ellie, was just learning to walk. Back then, I was proud to be the guy who kept the IT systems humming. Servers crashing at 3 a.m. I'd be there, coffee in hand, fingers flying over the keyboard to keep clients happy. Logan was my boss even then, always quick with a grin and a good job that never felt real. I didn't care at first. I was building something, proving myself. But the late nights piled up. Missed dinners with my wife, Sarah. Ellie's school plays where I was just a seat left empty. My jaw tightened as I thought of it, the ache in my teeth familiar. Logan had a knack for stealing the spotlight. I'd spend weeks coding a new client portal, testing every line until it was perfect. Then Logan would swoop in at the board meeting, presenting it as his brainchild. My vision for efficiency, he'd say, while I stood in the back, forcing a nod. I never spoke up. Loyalty, I thought, was keeping my head down, doing the work. My hands balled into fists on the table, nails digging into my palms. Loyalty. What a fool I'd been. There was this one time, 2 years back, that still stung. A major client's database went down during a peak sales week. I worked 48 hours straight. No sleep. My eyes burning as I rebuilt the system for backups. Logan didn't even call to check in. When it was fixed, he got a bonus for crisis management. I got a pat on the back and an email about team effort. My throat tightened now, remembering how I'd stare at that email, my coffee going cold, my silence louder than ever. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under my weight. The house was dark, but I could still see Ellie's drawings taped to the fridge, stick figures of us, happier times. I'd given everything to that job, to Logan, thinking it would build a future for us. My breath came short, anger mixing with something heavier, regret. I let him walk over me, let him erase me. My fingers twitched, itching to open the laptop again. He thought he could fire me and move on, lounging on his beach with his cocktails. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I'll make sure of that. What happens when a man who's been stepped on finally sees the power he's been holding all along? I was ready to find out. The kitchen was dark, save for the faint glow of my laptop screen. My fingers hovered over the keys, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Logan's words from a Zoom call, redundant, effective immediately, looped in my head, each one a jab to the gut. I leaned forward, the chair creaking, my breath shallow. Then it hit me again, sharper this time. HR will handle the access revoked tomorrow. Tomorrow. My lips twitched, not quite a smile. Logan, in his sun-soaked arrogance, had left the door wide open. I logged into the company's IT system, my admin credentials still active. The dashboard loaded, a grid of icons I designed myself. Servers, databases, client portals, all pulsing under my control. My heart kicked up, thudding against my ribs. This wasn't just access, it was power. Every shipment schedule, every client contract, every piece of data Logan bragged about in his boardroom speeches, it all ran through systems I'd built. Systems I still held the keys to. My hands steadied, the trembling gone, replaced by a cold focus. I clicked through the admin panel, my eyes scanning the familiar layout. The client database, names, emails, deal histories. The server logs, every transaction, every update. The backup protocols I'd set up to save Logan's ass when he overpromised clients. My pulse quickened, not with fear but with possibility. I could crash a server, delete a file, reroute a client email to nowhere. The options spun in my head, each one a spark. I rubbed my eyes, the sting of exhaustion sharp, but my mind was alive, electric. I thought of Logan, sipping his cocktail, oblivious. He'd always been careless, leaving passwords on posts, ignoring security protocols I'd begged him to follow. "You handle it, Aiden," he'd say, waving me off. Now that carelessness was his noose. My fingers tapped the desk, a slow rhythm, as I opened the system logs. Every move he'd made, every email he'd sent, was there. I could see his last login, yesterday, from some resort Wi-Fi, probably right before he fired me. My jaw clenched, the ache familiar now. I leaned back, my boots heavy on the floor. The house was silent, my family asleep upstairs. Ellie's drawings on the fridge caught my eye again, a reminder of why I'd worked so hard. For them. For a future Logan had just tried to rip away. My breath came slow, deliberate. I could end him, not with fists, but with this. A few clicks, a few changes, and his world would unravel. But how far would I go? My hand froze on a mouse, the cursor still blinking. The power was mine, but the cost wasn't clear yet. With every system at my fingertips, I could break Logan's empire in a night. But what would it cost me to cross that line? The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m., its ticks loud in the dead quiet of the house. My laptop screen cast a pale glow, the IT dashboard open, its grid of control points staring back at me. My fingers hovered over the keys, steady but restless, like they were itching to pull a trigger. Logan's smug face from the Zoom call burned in my mind, his tan smirk, his casual redundant, that gutted 10 years of my life. My chest tightened, but now it wasn't just anger. It was purpose. I started small, clicking through the system's back end. I knew every corner of this setup. Every weak link, every shortcut Logan had ignored when I'd begged for upgrades. The client portal had a glitch I'd patched a dozen times. Without my fix, it could lock out users. The server backups? I could delay them, make it look like a glitch. My heart pounded, a steady thump against my ribs, as I jotted notes on a legal pad. Not reckless moves, calculated ones. My pen scratched the paper, the sound sharp, like I was carving out his downfall. Logan's arrogance was my edge. He never changed his passwords, never audited the logs. "You're the tech guy, Aiden," he'd say, brushing me off. Now, that laziness was my opening. I pulled up the admin logs, my eyes scanning his activity. He'd logged in from Aruba, probably sipping another cocktail, clueless that I still had the keys. My lips twitched, a grim half-smile. I could reroute client emails, delay critical updates, or expose the data he'd mismanaged. My pulse quickened, a rush I hadn't felt in years. But doubt crept in, heavy, like a hand on my shoulder. I leaned back, the chair creaking, my coffee cold and untouched. What was I becoming? I'd always been the guy who fixed things, not broke them. My eyes drifted to the fridge, Ellie's drawings barely visible in the dark. I'd missed her last birthday for a server crash Logan took credit for fixing. The memory stung, sharp and raw, pushing back the doubt. He'd stolen from me, my work, my time, my family. My jaw clenched, teeth grinding. I wasn't the villain here. I turned back to the laptop, my fingers moving faster now. I mapped out the first move, a subtle tweak to the client portal's authentication, enough to cause chaos without leaving my fingerprints. My breath came short, adrenaline spiking as I saved the plan. Logan would come back to a mess, his precious reputation fraying. I rubbed my hands together, the calluses rough, grounding me. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. But as I closed the laptop, the darkness of the kitchen felt heavier. I'd started down this path, but where would it end? I had the plan, the power, and the pain to drive me. But could I pull it off without losing myself? The kitchen was pitch black except for the laptop's glow, the clock ticking past 3 a.m. My fingers trembled as I logged into the company's IT system, the admin panel loading with a soft hum. I'd spent hours planning, mapping every move like a chess game. Now it was time to act. My heart thudded, a heavy beat in my chest, as I navigated to the client portal's authentication settings. One small tweak, a delayed response in the login protocol, would lock out users without raising alarms. My breath caught, sharp and quick. This was it. I hit enter, and the change went live. My hands were clammy, sticking to the mouse. I leaned back, the chair groaning under me, and waited. The house was silent, my family asleep upstairs, oblivious to the line I just crossed. I rubbed my eyes, the burn of exhaustion mixing with a strange thrill. Logan had fired me without a second thought, sipping his cocktail on a beach. Now, I'd make him feel the weight of his own carelessness. By morning, my burner phone buzzed with notifications. I'd set up an old email account to monitor the company's internal chatter. Logan's messages were frantic, piling up in the IT team's inbox. Portal's down. Clients are pissed. Fix it now. His words were sharp, all caps, the tone of a man who thought shouting fixed problems. I could picture him, red-faced, pacing his resort suite, his vacation ruined. My lips twitched, a grim satisfaction settling in my gut. But a pang of guilt hit, too. My team, the ones still there, would be scrambling to clean up my mess. I refreshed the client portal status page, my pulse spiking as error reports flooded in. Major clients, big retail chains, logistics firms, couldn't access their accounts. Orders were stalled, complaints stacking up. The company's social media was already lighting up, clients venting about unreliable service. My throat tightened, a mix of adrenaline and dread. I'd done this. Me, the guy who'd spent a decade keeping the system airtight, was now the one tearing it apart. My hands clenched, nails biting into my palms. I thought of Logan, how he'd taken credit for my fixes, my late nights, my sacrifices. How he'd fired me without even looking me in the eye. The guilt faded, replaced by a cold resolve. This was just the start. I opened the system logs, my eyes scanning for the next weak point. Logan's empire was built on my work, and I could unravel it thread by thread. But as I clicked through, my breath hitched. A new email from Logan popped up, addressed to me. My heart stopped. Had he figured it out already? Logan's email stared back at me, his words sharp and accusing. Did he know I was behind the chaos? Or was he just grasping at straws? The phone rang at 10 a.m., the screen lighting up with Logan's name. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming as I stared at it. I was in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, Ellie's cereal bowl still on the counter. The client portal had been down for hours now, my tweet causing chaos I could feel from miles away. I took a slow breath, my chest tight, and answered. Hello. My voice was calm, practiced, like I hadn't spent the night dismantling his world. Aiden, what the hell is going on? Logan's voice was sharp, frayed at the edges, not the smug drawl from the Zoom call. The portal's a mess. Clients are losing it. Did you screw something up before you left? His words hit like a slap, accusing me even now. My jaw clenched, teeth grinding, but I kept my tone even. I don't know, Logan. I was fired, remember? You said HR would handle my access. Silence hung on the line, heavy, his breathing uneven. I could almost see him, pacing some hotel room, his tropical shirt wrinkled, his vacation in ruins. Fix it, he snapped like I was still his lackey. You built the damn thing. My fingers tightened around the phone, the plastic creaking. I wanted to laugh, to tell him he'd dug his own grave. Instead, I said, I don't work for you anymore. The words felt good, sharp, like a blade I've been holding back for years. He sputtered. Aiden, this is serious. Clients are dropping contracts. The board's breathing down my neck. His voice cracked, desperation seeping through. My heart pounded, a rush of power flooding my veins. He was unraveling, and I was the reason. I leaned against the counter, my free hand rubbing the back of my neck, sweat beading despite the cool morning. Sounds rough, I said, my voice low, almost taunting. Maybe check the logs. Could be a glitch. I knew he wouldn't find anything. Not my fingerprints, anyway. I covered my tracks, buried the tweak in routine code. But his panic was real, tangible, and it fed something dark in me. You're not hearing me, he growled, his tone shifting, pleading now. I need this fixed, Aiden. Name your price. My breath hitched. A bribe? After everything? My knuckles whitened, the phone digging into my palm. I hung up without another word, my pulse hammering in my ears. The kitchen felt smaller, the air thick. Logan's voice lingered, his desperation a crack in the armor he'd worn for years. Clients were bailing, the company bleeding money, and he was begging me. I glanced at the laptop, still open from last night's work. The next move was already forming in my mind, sharper, bolder. He thought he could buy me back. He had no idea how much more I could take from him. Logan was begging, but I wasn't done. How much deeper could I cut before he realized who was really in control? The kitchen was silent, the laptop's hum, the only sound as I sat at the table, the clock nearing 1 a.m. My hands were steady now, no tremble, just purpose. Logan's desperate voice from our call hours ago still echoed. His plea, his bribe. Name your price, he'd said, like he could buy me back after throwing me away. My jaw tightened, the familiar ache in my teeth. He'd underestimated me for the last time. I opened the system logs, my eyes scanning the data I'd spent a decade organizing. Every shortcut Logan took, every ignored warning about security, every time he'd push a client deal without checking the tech. It was all there, time-stamped, undeniable. My fingers moved fast, pulling reports that showed his negligence. Delayed updates causing outages, unpatched vulnerabilities I'd flagged years ago. My heart beat steady, a calm I hadn't felt since the Zoom call. This wasn't just revenge, it was truth. I set up an anonymous email, routing it through a VPN to cover my tracks. The message to the board was short, professional, a whistleblower's tip. Attached were the logs, screenshots, and an audit trail that painted Logan as the reckless fraud he was. My breath hitched as I hit send, the weight of it sinking in. This would end him, his title, his reputation, his future. My hands rested on the keyboard, cool against my skin, as I imagined him opening his email tomorrow, his world crumbling. By morning, the fallout began. My burner phone buzzed with internal chatter I'd tapped into. The board was in a frenzy, calling an emergency meeting. Logan's name was everywhere, tied to phrases like gross mismanagement, and client losses. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Social media was alight with rumors. Clients dropping contracts, competitors circling. Logan's LinkedIn profile, once full of smug posts about leadership, went silent. My chest loosened, like I could finally breathe after years of holding it in. I thought of the years I'd spent fixing his messes, my family waiting at home while I worked through nights for his glory. The memory of Ellie's empty seat at her recital hit hard, a dull ache in my gut. Logan had taken so much, and I'd let him, thinking loyalty was enough. Now he was the one with nothing, fired, disgraced, his name poison in the industry. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark. My hands didn't shake anymore. Justice felt quiet, final, like a storm that had passed. Logan was gone, his empire in ruins. But as the dust settled, will my victory heal the scars he'd left behind? The kitchen felt different now, lighter, as sunlight spilled through the window. It was a week since I'd sent the email that ended Logan. My laptop sat closed on the table, no longer a weapon, but just a tool again. I sipped my coffee, warm for once, my hand steady. The news had spread fast. Logan was out, fired by the board after my anonymous tip exposed his years of mismanagement. My burner phone, tucked in a drawer, had buzzed with updates. Clients jumping ship, the company's stock tanking, Logan's name dragged through industry forums. His LinkedIn was a ghost town, his last post a pathetic plea for new opportunities. My lips twitched, a faint satisfaction settling in my chest. I leaned back in the chair, its familiar creak grounding me. The house was quiet. Ellie at school, Sarah at work. I'd landed a new job, senior IT consultant at a smaller firm, better pay, less ego. The interview had been easy. My reputation, built on years of fixing Logan's messes, carried me through. My shoulders felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried too long. But when I closed my eyes, Logan's voice from that Zoom call still echoed, redundant, effective immediately. My jaw tightened, the ache faint but there. Victory didn't erase the sting. I stood and walked to the fridge, Ellie's drawings still taped up, colorful and uneven. One showed me with a superhero cape, a kid's dream of her dad. I'd missed so much for that job. Her recitals, her birthdays, moments I couldn't get back. My fingers brushed the paper, a dull ache in my gut. Logan hadn't just stolen my work. He'd stolen time with my family. I'd made him pay, his career ruined, his name unhireable, but it didn't fill those empty seats at Ellie's place. My breath came slow, heavy with the truth. Justice was mine, but it wasn't a cure. Later that day, I walked outside, the air crisp, my boots crunching on the driveway. A neighbor waved, and I nodded back, feeling a strength I hadn't in years. I'd been invisible for so long, swallowing my pride to keep Logan's world spinning. Now I stood taller, my fists unclenched. Loyalty, I'd learned, was a two-way street, and I'd never owe it blindly again. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah, asking about dinner plans. I smiled, typing a reply, the normalcy grounding me. Logan was gone, his empire ashes. I'd rebuilt mine, but the scars, they'd stay. I'd torn Logan down and built myself back up. But would the ghosts of those lost years ever let me rest?